The Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, kinda power. I love the power. I love the power.
Hi everyone, I'm Macca 19 and this is the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast, coming to you live once again on Port Fan Radio, a fan-driven online radio station dedicated to the Port Adelaide Footy Club. Joining me this evening are two of our favourites from the Big Footy Forum. The first one is Dylan8. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks, Macca. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, buddy.
Be good if we could talk under some positive circumstances for once, but I always seem to get the form slumps whenever I come on.
That's it. That's how we like it.
Yeah.
And joining us as well is someone that's been on a few times before, in HaroldOliver.
Thanks, Macca. How are you going, guys?
Good, good. So how have you seen the start of the season?
Unfortunately, I have seen it. It hasn't been too great. The first week wasn't so bad. You know, I hate losses, but at least, you know, we knew we're thereabouts. But last week was a shocker.
Yeah, that's it. It was a bit disappointing last week. I thought we played pretty well in round one, but you know, we just looked a little bit out of it last week. What did you think, Dylan?
Yeah, look, after the first week, I was totally expecting the same sort of thing the week after, but with a bit of match fitness as well, because we went in with so many underdone guys, in Monfries, Hartlett, Ryder, you know, and nothing really seemed to change. Actually, we got worse. We regressed, and the work rate was down. So that was extremely disappointing.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking worse thoughts straight after the game. Disappointing is quite, well, far less cruel than what I was thinking. But hey, you get over it.
That's it. Look, as we've said on the podcast, I think we were 0-2 in 2002 and 2003 and won the minor premiership, finished top. So certainly not out of it yet.
Oh no, not by a long shot. And Sydney were 0-2, if I recall correctly as well, last year. Ended up finished top. Obviously it didn't finish well for them, but, you know, that's a single game. You can't really change that.
Yeah, they got to the big dance. That's the main thing.
That's right.
Once you get there, you got a chance.
That's it. Absolutely.
And we were just one step away from that.
Indeed.
And so we need to bounce back this week.
We are playing North Melbourne. It's round 3 this Saturday evening at Etihad Stadium. It's a team and a venue that we've struggled with in recent years. We've got an 8-21 win-loss record against North, and we've also only won 5 from our last 22 games at Etihad Stadium since the start of 2007. So certainly not a happy hunting ground for Port Adelaide.
No, you don't have to remind me. Look, living in Melbourne, every 4 out of 5 games we get down here is at Etihad, and I'm just trudging along every week thinking what's going to be served up this time. Like, maybe we'll snatch a win, but it never seems to happen. Like last year against North, you know, we thought you have it, and then Ben Jacobs slotting goals and Monfries running into open goals and swinging hammies, and yeah, it's just always a disaster.
Yeah, hopefully everything goes right this round.
Indeed. Well, look, last time we met, as you said, was round 3 last year as well, where we lost by 7 points after leading by 16 points early in the last quarter. Have you guys seen much of North Melbourne plays so far this year?
No, I've seen nothing.
Yeah,
Can't make an informed judgment.
I thought I'd catch their game on the weekend, but ended up getting it a bit late and sleeping in and completely missing it. Not that I was really disappointed, because obviously they just rolled Brisbane.
Yeah.
But, actually, I did catch the first week game, and that was, I don't really know how much you can take from that, because they just got monstered. I mean, I don't know if that was just Adelaide being completely hot form or them being completely terrible, but they showed the next week they're plenty capable.
Yeah, they're showing their flaky form from last year as well, aren't they? They've continued it this year. Insipid one week and then brutal the next.
That's it. I mean, they were awful against Adelaide in round 1, and they were just absolutely bullied around the ball. They lost the clearances and contested possessions and just couldn't find anything up forward. Waite had a bit of a dirty day. Then last week, they basically did the exact same thing to Brisbane. They killed them in the middle and won by 80 points. So their form line is a bit of a mixed bag at the moment. I mean, did they turn the corner against Brisbane? or did they just bully a team that they had more than double the experience then?
Well, yeah, you can't really take a lot out of the Brisbane game either. I mean, with their tall forward and tall back stocks, I mean, even Waite's going to have a field day against them. It's not really a huge achievement. And still, their midfield is... I mean, it was hyped up over the pre-season Brisbane, but it's not really as good as it's been talked up, and they've got to have time to gel, and there was no Rockcliffe. You know, there was plenty of reasons why, you know, North had that in the bag.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that they've really announced themselves again as a top 4 contender, because, you know, that round 1 loss, that was a lot to come back from. I think they've still got to really prove themselves.
Yeah, just like we have to as well now.
That's it. There's a lot on the line this week. I mean, we certainly don't want to go 0-3. I mean, that would be a bit of a disaster. But, I mean, North Melbourne as well, I mean, if we do win, I mean, that would put a lot of pressure on North.
Yes, and they've actually got a few harder games after that as well. So, whoever loses, it's a bit of a poison chalice, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there is a lot of expectation on North, but I don't think anywhere near as much as us, because we were the young team, you know, predicted to keep improving, whereas North was sort of seen as this, you know, reached their peak last year, if you will, and they're sort of like, you know, aging lists. You know, they've hit a bit of a wall. So I think us losing would be way more disappointing, you know, like league wide, I think.
No, we're a definite contender. Well, we were before the beginning of the year, and hopefully we still will be after the end of Saturday.
Well, look, we made 4 changes this week. Some pretty big changes too. It's probably the biggest or the most shocking announcement in terms of teams that we've made under Hinkley so far. We've rested Kane Corns, which is a bit of a surprise. He misses his first game since 2012. Jakey Need and Jared Redden going out. It's probably pretty straightforward, and obviously Impey out injured. But it's the ins that excite me. I mean, Youngie comes back in, certainly a deserved shot there. Kane Mitchell comes back in, that'll be a bit of a controversial selection. Our 2015 player sponsor in Nathan Krakouer is in the team. And the debut for Brendan Ah Chee, which is fantastic.
Yeah, there's a BigFooty sponsorship in there, the crack on last year's Ah Chee.
Yep.
Yeah, look, Ah Chee was a bit of a surprise. And living interstate, you know, I can't really watch the SANFL games, so I would have no idea how his form is. But, you know, you watch the highlight package, he's got a bit of flair about him, but he's not like those guys who've been knocking at the door, you know, your Young, Moore, Newton last year, who just put the week in, week out, you know, consistent performances. And he sort of just... You know, I think it may be a bit early. Like, I'm not really sure if he's really proved himself. I know Newton took a long time. I mean, a lot of consistent performances last year to only get a handful of sub games. So, yeah, I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, it is a bit surprising. I suppose the one thing in his favour is he's certainly not underdone. He's had a good pre-season. He's going in fully fit. I think it's sensational news that he's going to have his debut, but it was surprising for me. The thing about his role in the SANFL, he does play a bit of a run-with role, and he can be a bit of a clearance beast as well. And so I think that's going to be his role, is to do a bit of a tagging job and to get the ball out to our runners. And the good thing is he knows how to kick a goal, so I've got my fingers crossed.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a bit of a surprise, and look, I'm absolutely stoked for Arch. I mean, he is a guy that's worked so hard. He came to the club as a bottom-age recruit, and he has been a bit of a slow burn in terms of his form. He's gone through a few dips, but his last probably 10 to 12 SANFL games have been pretty high class since he moved more into a midfield role as opposed to a forward pocket or a third tall up forward. You know, we've spoken to him a couple of times on the podcast, and I'm just absolutely rapt that he's got his chance.
Yeah, it's great he's got an opportunity, because this is really the year for him, isn't it? He'd really want to make his year. That's
it. Yeah. He's up for, you know, he's out of contract at the end of the year, so he certainly needs to make this a winner. And I think it's great. I think he'll add quite a bit to our team. As you said, Harold, he's a bit of a clearance beast, and that's something... Well, certainly a place where we struggled last week, and I think without the likes of Moore and Young in the side in the first 2 rounds, I think we lack that sort of second string inside midfielder, and I think Ah Chee will bring that to the table this week.
So who do we reckon is going to get the nod for a substitute? Because any 4 of those ins really could be the sub.
I reckon Krakouer.
You reckon it's the fitness thing?
I think it might be a fitness thing. I think, it really depends what sort of role they want him to play. I mean, if he ends up playing on someone like Higgins or Thomas, I mean, it's a possibility. But, I mean, it might be Monfries again. You never know.
Yeah. Well, with their small forwards, I mean, Thomas and even Boomer when he plays forward, I mean, they completely destroy us. And Impey's out this week, obviously. So I'd like to see him get the nod to start the game in the back line.
Me too.
I think Mitchell would be a good sub. I'd love to see Young get a full game for sure. That's why I'd rather have Mitchell as a sub, because Young, really, he deserves it. His pre-season form was, top 5 in the club. Yep. He was outstanding, and he really adds a lot around the ball, because we've been smashing the midfielder. It might be down to Lobe being out, but yeah, we really need those numbers around the ball, and I reckon he'll really improve it.
I reckon you're right on the money, Dylan. I agree completely with what you just said. We also have to think that, Nahas, that spud that tears us apart, is playing as well. So I think it'd be great that Ken has released the Kraken to tackle one of those small backmen, or he could even go forward. And I like the idea of Mitchell coming on as the sub, because I think that's where he's played his best football. And also I think perhaps maybe Matt White might tag Harvey for much of the game, and then Mitchell could take over and hopefully run Boomer into the ground and make him accountable. So I'm thinking they could go that way. And you're exactly right about Aaron Young. He's been in fantastic pre-season form. He was really unlucky not to be selected for round 1.
Absolutely. And look, Judy Rowe on Twitter agrees that it should be Kane Mitchell. I think the thing that I like most about these inclusions this week is that we've sort of put ego aside, we've put names aside, and we've just gone for guys that are in cracking form at the moment. I mean, Ah Chee was great last week, so was Krakouer. As we've said, Youngie was one of our best performing players in the pre-season, and Kane Mitchell had a ripping game last week at SANFL level as well, and also had a huge pre-season. So I think it's exciting that that these 4 guys are getting their shot. I reckon it would have been easy for the club just to put in guys like O'Shea and Moore, but we've gone a little bit left of centre, and it'll be interesting to see how they go.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, Mitchell, he gets a lot of it. I mean, he gets a lot of stick, but he's a good runner. He's around every single contest basically. I mean, that's what we're lacking, the numbers around the ball. Whether he has the big body for it to really sort of out-muscle guys and actually make an impact when he gets to the ball is another thing. But he's going to give it his best, and he's going to deliver with the running. What I like about the inclusions though is that when you look at the outs, you've got Impey, a defender, Need, small forward, and Redden, the big lumbering, basically, a bit harsh, but he was pretty useless last week. And we've got 3 midfielders in. And I reckon that's exactly what we need. We just need more numbers around the ball.
Yeah, especially for Etihad.
Yeah, that's right. No concerns that we're going in too short?
There is that. I'm probably not alone in saying that. I was hoping that Butcher got the call up this week with his good stats in the SANFL and his obviously much lauded pre-season. But yeah, well, Mitchell being in there instead of Butch will probably rustle a few people, but
if he plays full forward, the board would go ballistic.
And especially because they're
especially because he's 4'10". I mean.
Yeah, we'll replace our 4 forward in Need for Kane Mitchell. El Scorcho will go crazy, won't he?
He would.
Only Ken Inkley. Jeez, flashbacks of the slump last year.
Hopefully we're wrong.
I think Butch would have been good because they're bringing in Tarrant. I think it's his first game of the year this year, and he was a forward for most of his career. Correct me if I'm wrong. So he's going to be pretty new to the defender role, and that with Ferrito. I mean, I've never really rated him that highly. So I would have liked to have Butcher there, him and Schultz and Westhoff and Ryder, rotating through there.
Yeah, that's North's weakness, the tall defenders.
I thought it would have been nice to try and exploit it, but then, you have flashbacks of Butcher Eddie had last year against North and him slipping over, and it wasn't a pretty sight. I mean...
No, that's right.
No, it wasn't good. But Krakouer selection is just tremendous news, and it's a bit of a fillip for all our supporters after a fairly deflating football week. And it'd be an incredible football journey if Nathan, this could be the beginning of a fairy tale that ends with him as a 150-game premiership player or something like that. It would just be absolutely brilliant story. But hopefully...
It's a fantastic story. Yeah. It's a great story. I mean, here's a guy that came to the club. He never seemed settled in his first stint at the club. He left under sort of controversial circumstances, taking the money and going up to the Gold Coast. Quit football altogether. Now he's come back to Alberton. He gets his chance this week. Played in a grand final for the Maggies last year. Gets a go at AFL level this week, and the sky's the limit for Krakouer, I reckon.
And he really earned it too. It wasn't just him walking back in. I mean, obviously Ken would have never had that, so he really did earn it. And I was pretty happy when we picked him up, to be honest, in the rookie list. I didn't know if he'd really slot in this fast. I mean, that was huge, but
yeah,
I was still happy that we picked him up because he's got a lot of upside, and it's better than picking a guy, to make an example, Sam Russell last year. I mean, he's not really going to be anywhere near it for years if he sticks around. So Krakouer is a good kind of player to have on your list who you can just plug and play.
Yeah, well, the insurance policy has come in. We can cash in the insurance policy of getting him. It's been worth it, hasn't it?
It's better than a Matthew Thomas rookie list recruit or something. I mean, he's actually got the elite skills and composure. He's a real good get.
Judy Rowe on Twitter is asking, Krakouer play a role like Wanganeen?
Pretty big role.
It is a pretty big role.
But I think perhaps he's versatile. He does have that. He could play forward or back.
Yeah.
Got good skills.
Yeah. With Need and Impey out, you can look at throwing him around a bit. I mean, depending on where we need him, if Lindsay Thomas is tearing it up, or like if Jonas doesn't go to him or whatever happens, you send him back.
Do you think he'll start down back?
I think if he starts the game, yeah, he will, because he comes in for Impey, and I thought Impey's been good for the last couple of weeks, so they want to actually replace him.
Yep.
And because they actually do have that small forward, the Lindsay Thomas, the type that doesn't actually rotate in the midfield, and they're just permanent small forward. We'll want to keep an eye on him, and I think Krakouer's the guy for the job.
Yeah, I think he'll start back too. And he's got beautiful skills and makes good decisions, and so that will help some of our forward thrusts as well as doing a defensive job.
Yeah, no, I like that call. Daniel Willoughby on Twitter has asked, with these inclusions, do we think it could bring some freshness into the team? And I have to say, I do agree. I think it will bring some freshness into the team, especially in the midfield. I think we'll see a much harder running midfield this week.
Yeah, very dynamic. Kane Mitchell, he'll come in and run. Young, he'll really get around it, and he manages to find space. It's one of the underrated things about him is he can find a lot of space in traffic. And Arch, obviously, you mentioned he's really good in the clearances. So I think, it'll be good for the midfield, but a lot of our midfield, I think, rests on Lobie, and it's been demonstrated. So I think Ryder really has to have a really killer game. I hope he's got his match fitness right up now. So
yep.
He really needs to compete against Goldstein, who's in super hot form. He's one of those like top 3 ruck sort of you know what he's going to give you. And with their midfield, we really need to sort of curb the influence of Goldstein.
Yeah, from what I can recall of North Essendon games in the past, Ryder's always done pretty well against Goldstein. So I'm hoping that'll be the case again.
Yeah. Well, he had a good final against them last year.
That's right. Yep.
Oh yeah, that goal.
Well, look, we might as well talk a bit about North Melbourne and speak about their danger man. We've mentioned Goldstein, and look, for me, he's got to be the number one danger man for North Melbourne this week. He destroyed a very good ruck combo in Martin and Leuenberger on the weekend, and even in round 1, I thought he did the job on Jacobs. He looks stronger and a bit more determined this year. It looks like he's he's got his head right, and he's looking for an AA spot probably. Look, given how our rucks have started this year. He could be the player that really dictates the play for North Melbourne.
Can't argue with you there. I can't add anything. He has been in terrific form.
Yeah, so I
And
think
he
it'd
is
be
the
good.
danger man.
It'd be good to have Lobie because if Goldstein sort of gives him first use, it's always good with Lobie. You know, he's going to get down and really get dirty and put in the tackles and everything. So Ryder, you don't really get that with Ryder because he's got the big leap and he's often not got the time to get down and actually make the second efforts like Lobie does. So I think it would have been really, really handy to have Lobie, not just for his ruck work, and to free up Ryder, but you know, for those second efforts, they'd be super important against that North midfield.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And their
who do
midfield
you
is
think-
very strong.
Most definitely. I was just going to ask you though, who do you think might give Ryder a bit of a rest occasionally? Is it going to be Westhoff and occasionally Jackson?
Do you think it might
We
be
are
like?
we are small.
Do you think it might be like
It
that?
would be really hard to give Westhoff or to use Westhoff as that chop out, leaving Schultz on his own up forward. I
Yeah.
mean, that would be pretty tricky.
Yeah, shades of last year all over again, which is why I thought we'd pick Butcher. Do you think it might be like Fremantle game at AO last year where Renew frocked for 3/4? It could be like that with Ryder and then just throw Jacko in the ruck at the end? Or do you think it's too important to sort of keep Waite and Petrie minded? I mean, they took, what was it, 20 marks between them last week, so
Yeah.
I don't know if Trengo's too important.
Yeah, that's the thing because there's
They've
Brown
got a very
as well.
tall forward line. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
Brown,
very
and then
true.
there's Robbie Tarrant, who's come into the team, and he's played predominantly forward in his career, but I think they're looking at using him mostly in the back line this year, I think. But yeah, they've got a very tall forward line, so I mean, no matter what we do, whether we use Westhoff or whether we use Trengove, I mean, it's sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit.
It is a bit, isn't it? But you were going to talk about how strong North's midfield are, and that's where the battle's going to be won, I think, isn't it?
I think so. It's going to be interesting because I thought, we had a pretty good game against North Melbourne last year, but in the clinches, I thought their contested winning midfielders did a fantastic job. And you just got to look at Ben Cunnington, who got the 3 Brownlow votes last time. He's just an absolute beast around the packs. And then you've got Andrew Swallow, who's a fantastic inside midfielder as well.
Yep, Cunnington got 11 clearances last week, and Swallow's been high possession, high clearances for the last 2 rounds, even against that Adelaide team, which is pretty concerning because without those big bodies, you would have liked Moore or someone like Moore around the contest to sort of block their influence and sort of help us out. But we got Kane Mitchell, so I don't know how it'll work out.
I'm hoping they use Arch and Youngie in the midfield a bit too, and just rotate them all through there, because we do need some harder bodies in there. You're exactly right.
And fresher bodies, you think, especially with, you take Corns out and you're injecting in some youth, if you will. So,
well,
hopefully.
Archie's got the size. I mean, he's 188 centimetres and pretty solid. I mean, he's
solid.
someone that could certainly win the clearances.
Yeah, and Youngie's, he's hard and tough, he's wiry, and he can take a bit of brute force, and he'll throw his body where it shouldn't go. So I think we could match them, but we're really going to have to give it our all. There's no doubt about that, because they're a very impressive group. But we have got Ollie. We'll do a bit of that sort of work as well, undoubtedly. And Boak and Gray, they're not tiny players. But,
yeah, and one thing to remember about their midfield is last time they played us, when they just got over the line, they had Levi Greenwood, who was, highest possession winner, multiple figure marks, and Del Santo as well was very good. I mean, he was basically the difference, you might think. And they're both out. They're both out. Obviously, Greenwood isn't there anymore, and Del Santo's injured indefinitely. So, I mean, that's huge for us. That's probably why Kane's out as well, because he doesn't have to follow around Del Santo.
Well, look, let's talk about someone that seems to kill us every single time we bloody play them in Boomer Harvey. He's kicked more goals against Port Adelaide than any other club in his career. He's picked up 15 Brownlow votes. He had 23 touches and 3 goals against us last year. Who do we think will play on Boomer?
I don't know. Do we put someone around with him, like Matty White last time? Maybe he can do it. He was good, actually, Matthew White, last time against him. It was just that last quarter when
Yeah, he got away from him a little bit.
As a team, they sort of all got away from their direct opponents a little bit.
That's what I think he'll get that job again. I agree, and perhaps then put Mitchell on in the last quarter when Mitchell's completely fresh. Whether he's come on earlier than that is another matter, but I think he won't have to do as much tackling. You know, I think Boomer will be trying to keep up with him, and Boomer won't be quite as fresh in that last quarter as Mitchell will be. So,
and there's no doubt.
Again,
there's no doubt that Mitchell can tackle as well. I mean, he's always got the high tackle stats. So he'll be all right. I mean, he'll be all right for that. But I don't know if he can. If he can actually do the negating role. But I mean, if it's only for a quarter, he's got the fresh legs. He'll make him accountable. I mean, that sort of thing. It just depends. Does Boomer is Boomer playing the same role? Because one of the North posters came onto our board and he said that he was playing halfback a little bit this year. So I don't really know how he lines up this year.
Yeah, well, he's apparently named at centre half forward, so that should be interesting, won't it?
Isn't that the Ken English?
He's named at centre half back on Westhoff at the moment in the team.
Oh, centre half back, is it? Sorry.
The Jake
That's
Needs.
his key position. Yeah, well, there you go. We can do it.
That's it.
Both of them in the ruck, I reckon.
Look, we've just mentioned Kane Mitchell, and we've sort of scoffed a little bit at his tackling, but I think Kane Mitchell's a great tackler. Here's a question: do we think?
No, I wasn't joking.
His criticism, he is a
does get the
fantastic
stats.
tackler. Yeah. Do we think the criticism of Kane Mitchell is justified, or do we think he gets a bit of a rough go?
I think he gets a bit of a rough go. Simply, it's not him himself. It's more the selection of him, especially during that slump when we just looked awfully small, and he was the guy getting games. It was him and Sam Gray as well, and Sam Gray was all right. Yeah. I mean, he was pretty good. He wasn't outstanding, but he was a decent contributor, and it was just their selection rather than how they played, and the fact that we kept kicking to them and we kept kicking a need and the small targets where it just it was dreadful to watch because we just kept turning it over. So I don't think it's them, themselves, Mitchell. I don't think it's Mitchell himself. It's more just where they played, and it might be the same this week. I mean, I don't know. With
Mitchell
no
is that sort of like fringe number 22 player too. That's easy to pick on, isn't it? Because he isn't top 10 or anything like that yet. Sometimes people expect him to be that, and he's not that player. But he gives a lot. There's no doubt about that. And I think when he is sub, you know, he does make a real impact because he's just got that bit more time to do things.
I think he's a bit like Pittard in the fact that no matter how much good he does, he always does one thing wrong a game, which is really memorable, and you tend to remember that one thing, such as the non-tackle against Sydney, such as the missed goal from dead in front against Essendon, that sort of thing. And I think that overshadows all the good stuff that he actually does bring to the table. I do like Kane Mitchell. I think it's a well-deserved selection this week, and I hope he absolutely guns it out there.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, I was stoked for him when he came back last year against Freo, and he had a really good game, and he slotted this very important goal from the boundary when we were missing shots, and I was really stoked for him. I don't know about the Pittard comparison. I mean, Pittard's probably a far superior kick and doesn't kick it badly as much. His role is a bit more important, that sort of thing. I mean,
sure, but it's more the fact that you look at Pittard in round one, and the one thing that you'll take out of that game is the fact that he got caught holding the ball in the goal square, sort of thing.
Yeah, and then you get disappointing
as opposed to
things.
all the great stuff that he did in that game.
And you get disappointing things like the fans turning on him and blaming him, and it is sort of the same with Kane Mitchell. I get what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Well, look, let's talk about the danger man for Port, because we certainly got plenty of our own. And look, for me, I think our most dangerous men this weekend are our tall defenders, Carlisle, Trengove and Homsch, and you can probably add Jonas into that mix as well. I think we've got the class and certainly the defensive ability and the setups to go with their three key tall forwards. Who do you think will go to who? Who goes to Petrie, who goes to Waite, who goes to Brown?
Well, I think they'll do a bit of what they did last year, because Alapade and Jackson were brilliant on Petrie and
Curry.
And Curry. Well, so I figure that Carlisle will go to Petrie initially.
Yep.
Yeah, they got the bigger ball. I think, Trengove to Waite seems most reasonable. Does he play on him when he played for Carlton? I can't quite remember.
I think Jonas has played on him as well, so I think Jonas could do that.
Well,
I reckon Homsch will go to him.
Yeah, I think Homch will go to...
Homch has been taking those bigger, the Lance Franklins, and he can take a big forward.
For sure.
He's a
He's
bit
certainly
short,
got the
but
pace
he's
to go with
definitely
weight.
got it. Yeah. Oh yeah, weight's not overly fast.
No. And I think Trengove's got is more suited to Ben Brown this game, in my opinion. But...
And he's got the experience over him too. I think he'll do all right. Yeah, you've practically nailed that line up, I reckon. Pretty good work there.
Awesome. Does Tommy Jonas do a bit of a defensive job on Sean Higgins?
Either him or Lindsay Thomas. I don't know. I like it when he plays small. He's pretty good on small and tall, but I mean, I think who's the more dangerous of them? And Higgins has been pretty big since he's come in. He's snagged a few goals. He's always been pretty dangerous up forward.
Yeah, I think
Jonas
Brody
is a good
might go
nullifier.
on.
Brody?
Brody might go on Higgins, I think, to start off with. I know nothing about Turner. Have you guys seen him?
Turner's a pretty wiry sort of mid-sized forward. Decent pace, good sort of ball-winning ability. Can certainly play. He's probably a good comparison to a sort of first or second year Aaron Young.
So you think Pittard will take him?
I think maybe Pittard or maybe Broadbent. I'd probably be leaning towards Broadbent.
So who do you think could make Pittard accountable? Do you reckon he'd be able to make Pittard accountable with his dash off halfback? I know he's been pretty lauded for his physicality, but I don't know if he could actually run with the halfback.
Yeah.
And of course, Brody's pretty important there as well. Yeah. Do they have any defensive forwards?
I mean, Nahas is probably...
Their mid forwards aren't really
Yeah.
big names, are they? Nahas.
No. I mean, Sam Wright's probably another that might play up forward and do a bit of a defensive job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
So here's a question from Isaac on Twitter. If North decide to go the Freo Sydney route and try to clog up our forward line, do we clear our mids out of the forward 50?
Well, I would say no, because the way we're playing right now, we're chipping it around and chipping it around. Nah. Because then we're just going to keep perpetuating that. I mean, we're not going to kick it over them or anything, because that doesn't seem to happen under our new game plan. We just seem to kick it to the flanks, to the centre half forward, to the flanks. No deep entries, really. So I wouldn't think that would work, unless we're trying to revert back to our, one deep, tall forward sort of strategy, or one deep, tall, Jake Need strategy. I don't think that'll work.
I think we'll play a bit of a mix of both, actually. I think we'll have some of last year's, some more rapid, sort of fast transition into the forward lines, combined with some more tempo. So I think we'll mix it up with up-tempo and slow-tempo movement in to try and keep them guessing. I think that's what we should do. We should try to be a little bit more unpredictable, because we've just been too predictable, and I'm sure the Kangaroos are going to be more defensively minded against us than they usually are, seeing that sort of game plan has worked so well in the first two rounds.
Yep. So who else do you see as the danger men for Port Adelaide this week, guys?
Robbie Gray's slipped right under the radar first 2 weeks, I reckon. He's been racking them up, and he's been doing his usual magic. I think if we get a more attacking mindset rather than the short chips, if we go back to, more of what we were playing last year, I think his work will shine, because he can get out of the clearances real quick, get on the move real quick, and if he's got runners, and if he's got runners long, then that can really help us. Instead of holding it up, that sort of thing. I don't think it really helps his game. I think it's good when he bursts out of the pack. So I think he could benefit if we sort of revert back to our old gameplay. I mean, even without that, he's still been very good.
Yeah.
The other thing, it would be nice if he's got more midfield support so he can go forward a little bit more. Because he was almost our most dangerous forward last
very
year
dangerous
as well.
forward.
He certainly was, yeah.
Hasn't done it this year. So that's what we need. Do you think Aaron Young will do a bit of a job on Wells, perhaps, if he is named on the wing? Try to have one defensive wingman. and let Pollock go wild on the other? Head-to-head with Gisborne?
I'm not sure Young's probably the right player for Wells. I think Wells is a bit too explosive for Youngie.
Mm-hmm. And what sort of injury cloud was Wells under?
Well, there's still a chance that he won't play. Yeah, I don't know. It could be very well that we'll see him be a laid out.
And going back to Dangerman, do you think Justin Westhoff could be that man? He's certainly capable, isn't he?
I'd like to think so. Yeah, I think he's been a little bit disappointing the first 2 weeks. So, yeah, I think he's certainly due for a big game.
No, I still don't think he'll be that effective. We're really waiting on the Ryder Lobby set up so he can actually, get around the ground, as best he can as that sort of the floating winger, if you may,
Yep.
the really tall winger. I don't think we'll really see a great game from him because if he's just playing as I don't even know where he plays anymore. He sort of just floats and doesn't have much of an influence the last couple of games anyway.
I want him to stay forward more, personally.
Yeah.
To not do that midfield role. Let's just get him back playing his best football in the forward line because we don't have forwards. So
he's a very good contested mark, and that was that game against Carlton last year, round one, where he had that ripper second quarter and kick how many goals. Brought us right into it. He's got the contested marking ability, and he can kick. I don't know what's up with his kicking. You never know what you're going to get with him. But he's really capable as a sort of deep forward. I mean, I wouldn't mind him see him like do a bit of that because he's really capable. And if we're not going to play Butcher, and Ryder's going to be locking, we got to put him up there, I reckon.
We definitely need Westhoff up forward this week. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I think so too. And he played a great game against Carlton that Eddie had first game of the round last year. He kicked a bag before he was smacked in the back of the head. And seeing that we've really only got Schulze down there, I think he would be our danger player if he really turns it on. We really need someone like him to do that.
For me, I think the other danger people for Port Adelaide this week would be the small forwards. Wingard and Monfries tore them a new one last year before both got injured in that third quarter.
Kicking goals, mind you.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, they kicked them and also Hartlett, I think, kicked half our goals last year. And, two of them only played for 3 quarters. So it'll be interesting to see how North Melbourne line up against the likes of Wingard and Monfries.
Yeah. Who are their small defenders?
Well, Luke McDonald will probably do a job on one of them. Atlee, you would think, would go to either Matt White or maybe Wingard because he's got the pace. And then you're looking at someone like Mason Wood, I would think.
Mason Wood. Yeah, he wasn't the sub last week, was he? Because I looked at his stats and it wasn't very crash hot at all.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah.
He must have been. Yeah. Mason Wood. He hasn't played a lot of AFL, has he?
No, he hasn't.
No. So, I mean...
Only 2 games.
Yeah, Monfries.
But, I mean, he's more of a mid-sized, sort of taller defender, I think. But
well, that's exactly what you need against a sort of Wingard or... what's his name? Monfries, because they're not really like small forwards, you know what I mean? They're not like roving small forwards. They're really sort of lead up. Wingard plays as full forward half the time, so it's not really a small forward.
Yeah, true. Well, I think you hit on something, Macca. We really do have an advantage there as far as the small forwards go, especially if Robbie Gray goes down there. It's going to be a bit hard for them to control all of them all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, go, mate.
With that extra midfield grunt coming in, maybe that does free up Gray to go forward. And he's shown it in finals, everything. He can go forward and completely turn a game. So if it's a need, then definitely put Robbie Gray forward and, give Aaron Young a spell in the midfield or Ah Chee. That sort of thing.
Yep, that's the plan. And Ollie will do a bit of both as well. So if they keep rotating all the way through there in the midfield, there's quite a few players.
Ollie has become a very reliable set shot, hasn't he? And he's got a good contested mark. Yeah, I like the look of him forward. I mean, I like the look of him in midfield as well. But he's a very impressive player.
I just like the look of him. He's a sexy beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of that.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, look, who's going to win the game, boys?
I don't know. I reckon Port Adelaide. If I'm going to go real crazy out there on this Port Adelaide podcast, I'm going to say Port Adelaide. I don't know. It could go either way. I get this feeling that we will come out this week, and I reckon 5-goal win to Port.
Nice. I like it. Harold?
Yeah, going on our record against North, I can't say I'm confident, but if we owe any team, it's the Kangaroos, and I don't think our playing group will lack any motivation for, two reasons: our ladder position and our record against them. And we wiped out a heap of hoodoos last year, and I want North Melbourne to be one that we knock off this year, and we know our players are good enough. Last year's performance in the final series is testament to that, and I think if we're brave and believe in ourselves, we'll get up by 13 points.
This is the year that Robert Harvey breaks down and Nahas gets delisted from AFL completely, and Ben Jacobs isn't playing. It's all going our way, I reckon. We got it.
Well, he's an emergency, Ben Jacobs.
What was that?
Well, he might still get a game.
He's an emergency.
If Daniel Wells doesn't come up, they might well pick Ben Jacobs.
Don't say that. That's real. That's rude.
and we might get Macca's prediction of him missing a shot from the goal square, and we win by 1 point.
That would be beautiful. Great. I would love that. But look, I haven't been confident all week, but I've changed my mind over the course of this afternoon, and I think we're going to get up here. And look, I think if we win the midfield, if we use the ball well, which we didn't do last week, I think we'll win the game by 21 points.
Cheer, cheer the black and the white. Honour the Magpies day and by night. Live that.
Talk about the SANFL. It's round 3 there as well, and we face the other North Adelaide, for our first home game of the year at Alberton. It's a pretty early game at 12:10. It's also the televised game on Channel 7 as well. We've got a 175-88 win-loss record against North Adelaide. We shared the points 1-1 last year. North had a pretty close win against Adelaide last weekend, coming from behind to get up by 3 points. What do we think is going to happen in this game?
Yeah, well, we had a fantastic win against South Adelaide at Antarctica last week, which was very impressive. Especially since South had done fairly well the week before, albeit against North. I'm expecting us to play our own game and hoping to curb the influence of North's prime movers, which includes a few export players, doesn't it? Motlop and Kulikowski did really well last week. I think Shannon did okay too.
Yep.
But, I'm expecting to win. I think we'll win a fairly close game in greasy conditions. I'm really hoping to get there. Are you going, Macca?
Probably not. No. Unfortunately, I won't be able to get to Adelaide this weekend.
I really want to see Logan Austin play in the flesh for the first time. Apparently did well with 19 possessions last week, and he looks an exciting prospect. And I know Jesse Palmer, I saw a bit of him in the pre-season training, and he looked pretty good until he broke down.
Yep.
And I really want to see Muffins Colquhoun, continue his good form on the way back to top football, and see Wagner, or whatever his name is, turn on the afterburners for a couple of electrifying runs, etc. So, and I really hope Butcher kicks a bag of goals to torment the Roosters supporters.
That's it. We've brought 3 AFL listed players back in obviously Need and Redden, but also Paul Stewart, who was the emergency last week. He comes back into the side. We've also named Robbie Young and Luke Wilson, 2 very young pacey players there. I think we'll probably get the job done against North Adelaide. I think North have a very good side. I think they'll be right up there at the end of the season. They've got a lot of ex-AFL talent in their team. I mean, you look at Lewis Johnson up forward. He's a very good SANFL player. We've already mentioned Marlon Motlop. There's Mitch Clisby. There's Riswick, Joe Anderson, James Craig in the ruck. A couple of young sort of midfield types in Jesse O'Brien and Reece O'Keefe also played at AFL level. So I think they've got a very good team. If they can put it all together, they'll be very hard to beat.
Yeah, hence the close win, I hope.
Yeah, I'd like to see a bit more out of Carl Amon, out of his pre-season hype. Hopefully he knocks on the door like Ah Chee, get a few games on the board. Paul Stewart has been fantastic. Unlucky not to get a game, but I mean, he's just that bit of a mismatch compared to more specialised players we have in the AFL team. And Colquhoun, huge stats. Love to see him get up. Keep continuing the form, because he was actually really impressive. I loved watching him in 2013. He found space really easy, like it was nothing. He could read the play. 5 kicks ahead. It was fantastic. So he'll be a valuable player for us. If he can recover from that injury, real quick. It'll be a huge positive for us.
No
For
doubt.
sure.
I'm also very keen to see Carl Amon play. And look, I think he had something ridiculous like 7 frees against last week. So hopefully he can keep it in his pants this time and start winning the ball.
He got so excited, did he?
Carl.
Yeah, that's it. Hopefully he has a pretty big game because, again, I think he could definitely add something to our AFL team at some stage this year. And just want to read out a tweet from Nicholas Teal, who said the Academy Reserves game starts at 9:15am, which is pretty ridiculous. Got a feel for the boys there. And also a big congratulations to Will Northeast for being named Reserves captain.
Name's actually Teal.
It is Nicholas Teal with a TH.
Very close. Very close to being a natural cause sport, I reckon. Yeah, bloody hell. Sounds like my under-19s games. That is a shocking starting time.
Yeah. 9:15am, I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. I'm not sure why they're starting the senior game at 12:10. I mean, there was a few televised games last year that started that early, but I can't really see the justification behind it.
The SANFL, there is no justification for a lot of things.
Well, let's have a quick chat about the rest of the AFL. What other matches interest you this weekend?
None.
None?
It's not particularly inspiring, is it? If you look through the
it's
game.
probably not.
Yeah, you threw this question out to me before, during the week, and I looked through it and I'm thinking, what the hell can I pick from this list? The Derby, maybe. But West Coast are just sort of flat track, they'll probably just go down by a few goals. It'll be a bit of a boring affair. Actually, what I'm interested in is the Friday night game, Collingwood St Kilda, because that could be an upset, but turn out to not actually be much of an upset because of how far Collingwood's really fallen.
Yeah, I was going to say, is St Kilda beating Collingwood a huge upset? I'm not sure it is at the moment, but I mean, that's probably a bit of a 50-50 game with Collingwood. It'll be interesting to see if Pendlebury actually does play.
Yeah, he's huge. I mean, especially after they've lost so much of their midfield, the premiership midfield over the last few years. Beams, Thomas, Didak. So he's sort of got to carry the burden, especially with Swan getting on as well. So without him, it looks very bare.
And he's only their best player.
Very mid-table.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it wouldn't surprise if St Kilda got up, really.
I think that this is a round which could cause some upsets. I mean, we've spoken about St Kilda and Collingwood. I mean, I'm hoping there's a slim possibility that Melbourne get up against the Crows. I mean, Carlton might get up against Essendon. Maybe they might raise their level against the old foe there. And, GWS in Sydney, that might be a little bit interesting. Again, sort of Brisbane and Richmond. I mean, Brisbane might get up there. That'll be a bit of an upset. But I think the game that interests me the most is probably Hawthorn and the Bulldogs. I'm pretty keen to see how the Dogs go up against a great side like Hawthorn and see how the Doggies nipping at the heels at the great team go and whether they can implement their game, that sort of really fast-paced, super defensive game plan against the Hawks.
Well, Beveridge knows them.
Love to see him get up, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about Melbourne getting up against premiership favourites Adelaide.
What happened?
At home. Yeah, none of that happening. Yeah, it is a bit of a mundane round, but, like you said, could go anyway. West Coast getting up maybe. Geelong Gold Coast is hard to pick. They're both sort of pretty mundane, sort of playing some not very good football. That was a fantastic game last year as well, so look, it's probably not going to be as enjoyable this time.
Yeah, the Suns have been disappointing. Really.
Very disappointing.
They have, very disappointing. Yeah, well, I mean, it will be interesting to see how they go without Gary in the side. Not that he's started the season all that well anyway, but now that they don't have that sort of fallback option, they've got Trent McKenzie back, which is great for them. Certainly, Brandon Matera, if he could ever get his body right, he'll be a fantastic footballer. And they brought a few tolls back in like Gorringe and Nichols, so be keen to see how they go. I mean, I don't rate Geelong at all this year, but hopefully Gold Coast can get up there.
Yeah, no doubt. Any Geelong loss these days is pretty fun to watch.
Certainly is.
What did you make of the Penrith-Port Adelaide collaboration? Anything? A bit of news today.
I had a glance at that and I wasn't really sure what it was about. I didn't really read it in full. Can you give us a rundown?
No, I think really they're just going to swap some, expertise in different areas. I mean, Penrith are a giant as far as being successful off field and with their corporate operations. So we'll want to, get some info from them. And I suppose they're keen with how we've done our membership and how we've grown that over the last few years. So
Yeah, it's
certainly
good.
it's spurned a lot of interest in the media. So there's been a...
So we worked with Storm on the occasion with the training and sort of exchanging ideas with them. So it is pretty cool to see us looking at other codes because
That's it.
you can't really keep looking to yourself for new ideas. You got to keep looking out, and I reckon it's a great initiative.
Look, lads, we might leave it there for now. Dylan, thanks for coming on again, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Glad to be here.
No worries. We'll get you on again throughout the year for sure.
Appreciate it.
And Harold, pleasure as always.
Thanks, mate. I'll try and have a working computer next time.
It's all good. It's all good. And look, don't forget to tune into Port Fan Radio tomorrow night, which is Friday night at 7 p.m. for the debut show of the Port Adelaide pair. We obviously know their great videos from Facebook and YouTube. Now they're doing their own first show, the debut show for Port Fan Radio. So definitely have a listen to that. It should be pretty funny.
Probably won't draw as much as us superstars.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. And is that going to be a podcast as well? Are all the radio shows going to end as podcasts?
I believe so.
Who might miss it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we'll be converting all of them into downloadable podcasts.
And that's you doing all of that, Macca?
Maybe not.
Okay.
We'll see. I think we're hoping that the hosts can do that themselves, but if not, then I can certainly help out.
Fantastic. So, thanks on behalf of the board for you and Rick for setting all this up. Sensational initiative.
Yeah, fantastic work, Rick.
Oh, look, it was Rick's brainchild, but because he's not here, I'm happy to take all the plaudits for it. So.
Brilliant work.
That's it. Well, until next time, lads, can't Port Adelaide.
Can't pair.
Go the pair.
The heat's on in the kitchen. Oh, look at this. Play it simple. Good attack from Galapati Carlisle. He left his man. He took them on. He gets to Wines. Oh, baby! The finest of white.